We have been hacked. That is right. We have been hacked. All of us have potentially been hacked, and most of us don't even know it. But now you do. So pay close attention to find out how we have been hacked, what we can do about it, and what this means for the private investigations industry. You may or may not have heard about the most recent major data breach that just happened. The big problem with these data breaches is that most people have just become numb to the news about them. These seem to be almost an everyday occurrence, and they are usually tied to a single company, and we may not have ever been associated with that company, so it's no big deal. And many times the data is old, and there doesn't seem to be too big of an apparent risk to most of us. But this one is different. This one is big. I mean huge. This one could affect 2.9 billion, that is right, billion with a B, people. Jericho Pictures, also known as National Public Data, is a Florida-based national background company. These large background companies and many other data brokers as well get this information about you and me from public records, from national and state databases, and court records, just to name a few places. So what do they do with all this information in the first place? Well, they sell it, and it is completely legal for them to sell it too. They sell it to background check websites. They sell it to investigative entities. They sell this data to app developers, and they sell the sensitive information to data resellers. What kind of data, you ask? Great question. The data involved in this breach includes things like names, addresses, relatives information, and social security numbers. So how does this affect you? Can you see if your personal data has been compromised? What can you do if it has to protect yourself in the future? And what does it mean for the PI industry? Let's dive into these questions now. This video is sponsored by OREP Insurance and Working PI Magazine. OREP is a leading provider of private investigator liability insurance. Visit OREP.org for a quote today. How can you protect yourself from future data breaches? It would appear that none of the data that was exposed in this hack was from people who had opt-out services. These companies provide a service that opts you out of most companies' policies of sharing and reselling personal data. There is a cost to this, of course. From what I can tell, most are a monthly service fee that ranges from about $6 or $7 a month up to $20 a month. Now, using these services is not a guaranteed way to ensure your data is never shared or compromised, to be sure. This is data. And this information is stored and held on computers and servers and networks. And these computers and servers and networks are always going to be targets for hackers. But it could help immensely if you can't afford to use these opt-out services. Now, how can you tell if you have been exposed in this breach? Pentester.com has developed a tool for free that you can use to see if your information has been compromised in this data breach. I will leave a link in the description below for their online tool, but keep these things in mind. First, you will be required to provide your name, date of birth, and the state you live in to use it. What they do with that information that you provide, I have no idea. After entering your information, it will give you a list of everyone with the same name. It is in alphabetical order by first name, middle initial, and last name. In this list, you will see some of the data that has been breached, to include partial date of birth, address, city, state, zip code, phone number, and partial social security number. From my understanding, this is all of the information that was included in this breach, but I have no way of confirming that for sure. But keep in mind, the breach has more than a partial date of birth and a partial social security number. This breach includes the full date of birth and full social security number. They just limit that for reference on their website, as it is personally identifying information. How did this hack ever happen in the first place? I don't know for sure, but I have done some investigation into it, and this is what I have found out so far. The company that was hacked is Jericho Pictures, aka National Public Data. It is a Florida-based national background company. We know this from court records, as there has been a class action suit brought against them. We also know from these records that the event, the hacking, the breach, occurred in or around April 2024. The lawsuit alleges that the defendant, NPD, failed to properly secure and safeguard the personally identifiable information that it collected and maintained. It also indicates that the compromised information includes full names, current and past addresses spanning at least 3 decades. Social security numbers, information about parents, siblings, and other relatives, including some who have been deceased for nearly 20 years, and or other personal information collectively defined as PII. Now, how did the defendant, NPD, get the information in the first place? Well, check out this part of the complaint in the lawsuit. Upon information and belief, defendant scrapes the PII of potentially billions of individuals from non-public sources. Plaintiff and class members at no point knowingly provided their PII to defendant, and defendant instead scraped their PII from non-public sources. To make matters even worse, defendant did this without plaintiffs' and class members' consent or knowledge. Here are some other shocking facts about the allegations and claims in this lawsuit. Some of it is quite surprising and disturbing if it is true. Upon information and belief, plaintiffs and class members' PII was entrusted to other unknown public sources and was then provided to defendant by these sources for business purposes and for the benefit of defendant and the unknown sources. The information held by defendant in their computer systems included the unencrypted PII of plaintiff and class members. Wait a second. What was that? Unencrypted PII? Excuse me? It was data? It was stored on an unencrypted system? Well, ain't that just peachy? Defendant made promises and representations to its customers, including the sources that held the PII of plaintiff and class members, and thereby plaintiff and class members, that the PII collected from them as a condition of submitting a background check would be kept safe, confidential, that the privacy of that information would be maintained, and that defendant would delete any sensitive information after it was no longer required to maintain it. It seems they promised the data would be kept safe and confidential, and they would delete it after it was no longer required to be maintained. Then here in sections 17 through 20, it covers some key elements we need to discuss. 17. Defendant had a duty to adopt reasonable measures to protect the PII, and defendant has a legal duty to keep consumers' PII safe and confidential. 18. Defendant had obligations created by FTC Act, contract, industry standards to keep their PII confidential and to protect it from unauthorized access and disclosure. 19. Defendant derived a substantial economic benefit from collecting plaintiffs' and class members' PII, and without the required submission of PII, defendant could not perform the services it provides. 20. By obtaining, collecting, and using and deriving a benefit from plaintiffs' and class members' PII, defendant assumed legal and equitable duties, and they knew or should have known that it was responsible for protecting plaintiffs' and class members' PII from disclosure. The lawsuit then further explains who the perpetrators of this breach were. While no details have yet been revealed by defendant as to how or when the data breach occurred, upon information and belief, a cybercriminal group by the name of USDoD gained access to defendant's network prior to April 2024 and was able to exfiltrate the unencrypted PII of billions of individuals stored on defendant's network. Again, they allege it was unencrypted data and that the PII, or the personally identifying information, was that of billions of individuals. That is not billions of records, that is billions of individuals. The big difference there is that you could say one person may have different records inside the database. If you search for yourself, you may see several entries of your information with different addresses, but those are all records. You are one individual. These allegations state billions of individuals, which could, if that is 2.9 billion individuals, could be even more records, like in the tens or hundreds of billions of individual records of data that was breached. In fact, they state further in section 22 that it was 2.9 billion individuals. 22. On or about April 8, 2024, a criminal gang that goes by the name of USDoD posted a database entitled National Public Data on the dark web hacker forum named Breached. USDoD alleged to have the PII of approximately 2.9 billion individuals and offered the database for purchase at a price of $3.5 million. It further indicates that the size of the uncompressed database file that they were selling was a massive 277.1 gigabytes. And it further states that the information included first name, last name, address, address history for 3 decades, 30 years or more, and the social security number. And the data allowed relatives, such as parents and nearest siblings, along with uncles, aunts, cousins, to be tied to an individual. As well, it has records of deceased relatives nearly 2 decades old. Now, I am only through the first half dozen pages of the 50-page complaint so far. If you want, you can do some research yourself and you can see the entire complaint and all the other documents relative to this case on Pacer for free, or relatively for free, as long as you don't go over their monthly or quarterly allotted pages to view before they start charging you a fee. Now, since all of this was released, I have also heard from certain news sources that another hacker has posted the data from this breach on the dark web for free. That is right. Any hacker, any scammer, any scumbag with a desire to get their hands on your personally identifying information can do so now for free. So what are the implications for the private investigations industry? Well, they could be quite extensive. I have not heard anything yet, but I'm pretty sure we'll start to see some discussions on all levels regarding PIs and the data they have access to and the protections they need to take to secure that data sometime in the future. First off, this breach, while it had some pretty scary information included in it, it is also just a fraction of what is available in those super secret PI databases out there. And who knows, maybe some of those super secret databases get or got their information from NPD. But let's go back to the section 18 in the lawsuit complaint. Defendant had obligations created by FTC Act, or the Federal Trade Commission Act. Now this brings the feds into the picture front and center. I know this is just a civil class action lawsuit right now, but what else will come from it? Who else is investigating this breach? And then NPD themselves say, our services are currently used by investigators, background check websites, data resellers, mobile app applications, and more. Their first and foremost customer mentioned is investigators. Yep, that is going to most likely put the PI industry, as well as background companies, skip tracers, process servers, and other companies that provide legal services, into the feds and the states and other government officials' crosshairs, I'm sure. Who knows? This may bring about more discussions about national PI licensing efforts, which seem to never get much traction, but it could this time around. Most states have PI licensing, but the problem is that every state that has licensing has differing requirements and limits, and some are very strict, while others are very easy to get. For instance, California is very strict on qualifications and what you can do and how much experience you need and other things. Some states require police, military, or PI experience to get licensed, which means you may have to work for a PI agency for quite some time before you can even apply for a PI license. And then there are a handful of states, like here in Colorado, where there is no licensing. And even when Colorado had licensing, well, just about anyone could get licensed regardless of their background. That wasn't the original intent of the licensing here, but I know that there were individuals with felony convictions who came from other states where they couldn't get a PI license and obtained a Colorado PI license. And now, well, since our governor vetoed our licensing efforts, it doesn't matter. Anyone can be a PI here, but I digress. One thing I can see coming out of this is requirements for all investigators to secure their data in one way or another. If you would like me to do a video on how you can secure your data and help protect yourself from hackers, then let me know in the comments down below. And let me know your thoughts about this topic, about NPD, about the lawsuit and licensing. I would love to hear them.